I'm Rob Owen. I was born in 1940 in a little place called Padbury, which was about 2 hours from London, 2 hours north of London. But during the war, where my grandfather lived was very close to Farnborough, which is one of the major RAF establishments in England. I remember rationing. We had about 1 egg a week, and because I was the only child, my siblings were born after the war, I had the egg every week. But the rationing didn't affect us too much in the country because we could get meat and so on from local farmers. However, there were no delights such as ice cream that you had in Australia. Another thing I remember from the war as a young boy was we were living with my grandfather while my father was serving, and one night an American plane returning from a mission over Germany crashed into a hill just behind our house. And my grandfather was obviously wanted to go and have a look, and he took me with him. And I remember seeing the plane crashed into the hillside, and the policeman stopped him going any further. Anyway, the poor devils, they all died. I remember hearing what my parents, or my grandfather and mother said were doodle bugs, and these were the flying bombs that were sent over from Germany. I think they were called V2s. My father, George, was a flying officer in the Royal Air Force in England. And he was in the Lancasters as a flight engineer. My father's plane, the Lancaster, they were in 15 Squadron. He was the only Englishman on the plane. The rest were all New Zealanders. And he was shot down over Germany in 1944. My father, when he landed, his parachute landed on a fence in Germany, which was not far from Dusseldorf. He broke both his legs and an arm and smashed his head around a bit. And he reckoned he was very lucky being treated by the German doctors in the hospital. Although when there was an air raid that used to come over, they'd leave him in the bed and take all the German patients downstairs. However, he needed to get repaired because he was a tennis and squash professional, and he was really very good at squash, being one of the better players in the world at that time in the late 30s and early 50s. And from there he was sent to a prison camp that only he and a Scotsman were there, as well as a whole heap of Russians. And they were incarcerated there until the war ended. And when the war ended, the Russians went berserk. So Harry and my father George had to hide until they managed to escape and get through to the American lines. I remember one of them coming and staying with us at one stage, and I think he was the rear gunner. Anyway, I understand he was killed in the plane. When I was at sea, we called into Auckland, I guess it was, and I rang up the parents of the young fellow who'd stayed with us who was killed in the air, and had a talk to them, and they were lovely people. After the war, the New Zealanders kept in touch with us and used to send us food parcels, and that was another thing that sort of helped with this rationing, I guess. And sometime later, the pilot of the plane, a fellow called Alan Taylor, came over with his family and visited us and stayed with us. After the war, I remember a little parcel being sent to my father, and he very proudly showed us this little sort of golden caterpillar on a pin, and that signified being a member of the Caterpillar Club, which was given to airmen who had survived by parachute after their planes had been hit. And I understand that the significance of the caterpillar is that the silk was woven by little silkworms or caterpillars. One of the mementos of the war that I've now passed on to my daughter, who's loved some family ancestry things, it was the escape mat made out of silk, given to all servicemen in planes to help them escape if they did get shot down and land in Germany. I understand, and I've read that it's been 80 years since VE Day, and VP Day is coming up. I certainly have very fond memories of my father. I know his sister, who lived in Brisbane for many years, said to me he was an altered man after he came back from the war, from the prison camp, and I guess most of them were, but he was always kind and gentle, and I still miss him.
We sing as we limp through the air. Look below, there's our field over there. With our full crew aboard and our trust in the Lord, we're coming in on a wing and a prayer.